Greetings, brothers and sisters. So, I'm probably going to be making less content. I'll probably put a bunch of my journey series up. I have a backlog of them anyway. I'm feeling under the weather a little bit, and please don't say anything. Don't say, I hope you feel better or anything like that because it's unnecessary. I don't feel bad. Like, I'm not bummed about it. Mostly what I am is low energy. I think I have a real mild version of whatever COVID is or whatever it was that I've had before. I, of course, was hoping to avoid any sort of, like relapse or whatever happens with this thing. I've had it 3 times. The first time was by far the worst. I had that in 2020 in like April, March, right after, they announced that there was this thing. And then a year and a half later, I got Omicron. I skipped the Delta variant or whatever it was. And a year and a half later, I got Omicron, which was, in some ways better, some ways worse. I got really tired. And then last year, around this time, I think it was in November, I was sick for about a week. The other 2 times I was sick for about 2 weeks. Last year was about a week, and it was just like a kind of weird version of the flu, where there was some issues. I had some heart issues. That was the worst thing about it. I had some where my heartbeat was off and some other things. That was the worst part about that. But whatever I have now is I've had a few irregular heartbeats, so I feel like that's. And I think that this thing, and it'd be nice to know what it actually is, what it does, because it's not like a regular type disease. Anybody who's had some sort of a weird version of it, and I've talked to some people who have, and there's been people who have commented about it. It's a weird thing, and sometimes you feel great, sometimes you feel really sick, and the symptoms change. It's not a natural thing. And what if it is some sort of viral, some kind of virus? Then it's in your system all the time, right? Which is, this is what they say about viruses. Like, again, I'm not an expert in any of these things. But if it is in your system all the time, then there's going to be like some times where your immune system might be down. This time of year, it's always tough when it starts getting cold or whatever. So what I've been trying to do or working on, I haven't put as much effort as I want into it, is trying to get rid of it out of my system in any way possible, right? It would suck to be getting it every year. like that's just not. I have lingering health issues, but the problem with the heartbeat and some of the other neurological aspects of this thing, I don't believe it's good to have it, prolonged or in your system because it might flare up at any time. And if you're down with something else, that's when it's gonna, it's gonna be an issue. So, I think they've really screwed us with some sort of biological weapon here, and I'm eager to, remove it from my system as best I can. But since we don't really know what it is, and I don't trust the allopathic medical model anyway, so that is whatever it is. This time, like I said, I had a few irregular heartbeats. I've been sleeping a lot. First, I just thought I was feeling a little bit under the weather, like just tired, but I've kind of lost motivation. I barely got through my video yesterday. No shekels for Polly. I was really tired. I could barely go for a walk with my dogs, and I had no motivation to do anything. I made the video. It was only a 20-minute video, and I was dreading editing it. And it was pretty clean video. Like I didn't have to make a lot of changes. But my stomach was bothering me. I got it's like a stomach thing. I just had stomach issues. Let's just say. And then I felt really weak and just a little bit of mucus, but not much of anything. But it just felt kind of like a mild version of the other COVIDs I had. I had a little problems. Like I had shortness of breath where if I walked or exerted myself, I would get out of breath really quickly, but I wasn't having any trouble breathing. Of course, we have those little cans of oxygen that I use, which was helpful. And the thing I was talking about with my wife today is that, when you use preventative measures, you don't know how bad something is, right? If you do things that are preventative, because the allopathic model is you get sick and then they deal with the symptoms, right? But if you use preventive medicine to boost your immune system and strengthen your, your physical system, and you you have supplements or whatever you do. Like I took a cold bath yesterday, and it was a game changer. And I was so weak, I didn't really feel up to it. I take these cold baths almost every day in like 50-degree water, and I really enjoy them. And it's really been a game changer for me. And there's a video that got recommended to me about resetting the vagus nerve, and one of the things to do that was taking a cold, putting cold water on your face or doing, cold baths or whatever, which I've always found to be like a kind of a relief for me. Whenever I'm hot out in the summer and I'll run cold hose water. We have a well, and we have cold tap water going over my head when it's really hot. It just feels amazing. It seems like my head's always like kind of hot, like I'm a hothead. But after I took the cold, the cold bath, it really helped me, and a few other things I did help me. There's some I had some of this. I think it's called motherwort tea, which is good for heart stuff and other things. Again, I don't recommend anything. I'm just saying what I did yesterday, and I've done all these preventative things. I'm doing these castor oil packs because I'm working on having my liver detox and these things, get rid of the fatty liver. And I'm taking all these different supplements. And today I felt better. I slept till 10. I woke up a really good hour and a half. Like I meditated for an hour, and then another half hour after that. Like at 6 a.m. I just meditation. Then I went back to sleep, and I slept till almost 10, which never happens. Like I'm usually up by 7 or whatever, early in the morning. Seldom, occasionally I'll sleep till 8 or something, but I slept till 10, which is kind of odd for me. I've been sleeping a lot lately anyway because of the castor oil stuff. And it seemed like it started to get worse last night. I did a few things, and somebody sent me this about honey, putting onions in honey, and I put some other stuff in there, and it ferments. It's an old remedy, which is like the onions and the honey come together and they have this healing properties. I've had on and off sore throats and swollen tonsils for years. The last couple of years. A lot of it has to do with me, talking all the time. But I started using that. Somebody sent me that, and I was already thinking about doing something about that before I knew I was going to get sick, and that seemed to be a kind of a game changer for me. A few other things, right? But it's kind of metaphor for life, because when you make good decisions and you do things that are preventative and you make good choices in life, you don't know how bad it would have gotten had you made the wrong choices. And that's when you do preventative type of behaviors, preventative medicine in this case, and you never really know how much grief you spared yourself, how much difficulty you saved yourself from. And that's like kind of a tragedy about human life, that when you really screw up and things go south, and you never knew how bad they could get. I mean, if we're on the verge of like nuclear war right now, and these poop holes are just doing all this stuff to bring down the system. I mean, whether it's intentional or just self-destructive or both, they don't know how bad it could get with World War III or IV or whatever it is, and nuclear war and just all of it, like, or releasing something like a biological weapon or any of these things. When you introduce something into the environment and you just think that it'll be okay, and then there's all these repercussions. I mean, people have, there's things that have been done, like say the Dutch elm disease that wiped out all the American chestnut trees in America. Like they were so prolific 100 years ago or so. They dominated. They were like the redwoods there were these monster hardwood trees that had so many uses, and now they're all gone, right? There's, all the chestnuts you eat are Asian chestnuts. They're not susceptible to the Dutch elm disease. But you introduce something new into the environment, and you take some sort of action, and it's a monster mistake, and it can have repercussions that you don't know about, right? Like, we don't value all the things that we could have gone through. Like, people aren't grateful for the things that you didn't experience. Like, maybe you see somebody else have something, or you see an outcome that could have happened to you, or you hear about something that you were doing, some behaviors that someone else was doing, and they suffered some horrible catastrophe, and somehow you avoided it, and you feel a little bit grateful for that. But again, it's really hard to understand all the traumas and tragedies and horrible things that could have happened, right? So there are things that happen, but things could always be worse. And when you behave in a way that's moderate and healthy and organic, you don't know. It's always better when you're recovering from something or you had past experiences, like with COVID, for example. Like I know how bad it got before, and now it's much better. For me, whatever this is that I'm going through right now, it feels like I'm better today than I was yesterday, and however long it lasts. I mean, it's very mild, right? And the first time I started to get a sore throat, and I just I got sore throats all the time, and my wife and I went like custard twice, like it wasn't even good custard, and it was something we didn't usually do, and like my throat got worse after after the first time. I should have been like, no, I'm not gonna have this. It wasn't like I didn't care if I didn't have it or not. And then it got really bad after the second time. And eating sugar, of course, messes with your immune system, all these things. And I wonder if had I not done that and I knew some of the things I know now, of course, there's been all these great things that I found out. My usual, mostly what I do when I get sick is sleep. And I don't really get stressed out by it. Like I can't remember being sick. I had mono when I was a kid, and I missed like a couple months of school. Really bad case of mono, and I couldn't play and do things. I was like in fifth grade, I think, when I had it. I was 10 years old, so it was memorable because I even when I felt better, I couldn't. My mom was worried about my spleen being swollen, and so I wasn't supposed to play sports. And like I felt perfectly fine, right? But whatever. And a few other. I don't remember that many times being sick. Like just vague memories. The COVID, the first two times I remember, because like the second time I got so tired, I could barely get out of bed. Like I just, I kind of lost any sort of life force or vital energy. But that was only like one day for the Omicron. And the other thing was the breathing and some of the other stuff. My wife was sick at the same time, and we didn't know. Like it was this. People were going to the hospital and going to respirators, and I was like, I'm not doing that, right? And so, it was that was the worst part, the not knowing if it was going to get severe or I was going to, I was having trouble breathing or whatever. I didn't know how bad that was going to get, right? But had that not happened, and my body was ravaged afterwards. I was really weak and tired, and I just couldn't snap out of it. I wasn't still sick, but I was depleted. And now I've done all these things that were necessary to sort of take me into my old age where I'm doing things that are helpful and boosting my system because you're losing things as you get older. Your body's not like it once was. And so, my big thing, my mom was a hypochondriac, so mostly what I've done is just not do anything. I don't go to the doctor. I don't, if I get sick, I just, after a couple of days or a week, I get better. I mean, usually it's just a couple, I can endure whatever I can. It just doesn't bother me. But having medical intervention usually has made things worse for me. Most cases. Sometimes I've had to go on antibiotics or something because I have something I just can't shake or whatever. But getting back to the main point of this thing, doing things that are good for you, you don't know. Like you don't know how much you're protecting yourself and how much you're avoiding something undesirable. I was in my chiropractor's office, and there's an exercise thing there, like a Pilates studio and some weird equipment that I don't know. It's not like a regular type gym. They have different people who rent space there, and my chiropractor rents space upstairs, and so I usually have to walk by people who are working out. It's not that busy a place, but so this one day I'm walking between an overweight woman, young overweight woman, and like kind of I don't want to say severe, but 200 plus. I don't know. I don't know how to evaluate weight, and they're in the hallway, so I have to walk between them on my way out of the place. And she's talking to her trainer, and I can hear the story she's telling. She's talking about her husband who she doesn't like, or her ex-husband who she doesn't like, and she's saying, that she'll take her kids to McDonald's once in a while for French fries, but he takes them, and she says it really loud and forcefully. And just as I'm walking by her, like right, I'm walking between these two people, and I get blasted by her. Her emotion. She's like, he takes them every day to McDonald's for French fries, right? And her trainer said, yeah, then it becomes habitual, and your body craves these things, right? But what she's saying here is she knows the French fries are poison. I mean, she knows McDonald's food isn't good for you. But she thinks it's okay to give them to her kids a couple days a week, right? Like she knows they're bad for you. I think everybody does. But she's admitting that she does. Like some people are in denial, or they'll say whatever, it's not that bad, or they'll poo-poo it because they don't want to give up McDonald's, and they can't afford. It's a part of their existence. They can't afford something else. Remember when Cardi B complained to Joe Biden when she went to college, they didn't give her money to buy lunch, and she was hungry all the time. And people are writing, well, why didn't you make a sandwich, right? Like, why didn't you do something? People have very little knowledge of, there's this. I was telling my wife about this. There's a show with this British chef named Jamie Oliver, and he came to America, like to West Virginia and a couple of other places, and he was trying to raise awareness about health. Kind of interesting reality show. And one of the things he did is he showed kids. He did this in England and other places, where he showed kids all the crap they put in chicken McNuggets, and then that pink slime, the slime that they make into this, into chicken McNuggets, and into hot dogs and things. And usually when the kids find out what's in it, they're grossed out, right? And he did it for these kids, and he said, "You guys, what do you think about eating these?" They're like, "Oh, we'll eat them." The kids were fine with had all this gross stuff in it. And he asked the kids, he showed them things like an onion and an apple. And the kids didn't know what raw food was. They only knew what processed food was. And that's how bad it is in America, right? But, most people have a sense now, and this woman certainly did, that feeding her kids McDonald's French fries or whatever else they're eating there isn't good for them. But she did it anyway, right? And I'm sitting there going, yeah, you're working out, which is great, but like I know it's not glandular, right? Like, you're if you're eating this kind of food, you're just defeating yourself. Like at some point, you got to change your diet, right? For me personally, it's not about appearance. I don't care. You know, I mean, people are overweight. They're overweight. That's on them, right? People are more concerned about their appearance. But if you know what being overweight does to you, and it's also what you're consuming that's making you overweight, right? All this stuff with fat shaming and things like this, that's a big deal. But you're consuming poison. I didn't really ever watch that show, The Biggest Loser. Like I never watched a season of it, but I caught a couple of episodes. And the episode that really interested me was when they brought these obese people into a doctor, and the doctor would tell them what was going on with their internal organs. They would get this extensive testing, and he'd say, your heart, you're going to decrease your life by 20 years, right? The stress you're putting on your heart. And he'd explain, what was happening. Very interesting. Like this is the only thing, the workout stuff, sure, but the value that you would have in understanding not just what you look like physically on the outside, but what was happening inside your body. And then on a spiritual level, you're filled with toxins and, bad, chemicals, unnatural things. And it decreases your ability to connect to God and, feel like it is to feel like a human being because your body's so toxic. Your liver is spent because it's, been putting in these toxins and poisons. I mean, it's the same thing for drug addicts or any of these things. It's one thing to see, you look in the mirror and you see that you're, what you look like is a meth head. But it's another thing to understand what it's doing to you spiritually and physically and, internally in your body. Another thing that happened, so I just ended up watching a couple movies. And there's a movie called Carriers. That was a 2009 movie. Chris Pine, and he was, back when he was as annoying as he could be, right? And that's pretty, it's a lot of annoying. He's been in a couple of good movies lately. He was in that Dungeons and Dragons, which I enjoyed. My family watched that. I watched that a second time on Thanksgiving. And he was in a movie I think called Contractor. The Contractor. That was like the only two movies I've ever seen where he wasn't off the charts annoying. But the movie was. It starts off with four younger people going for a joyride, and I read what it was about. There was a pandemic. That's what made me watch it, and it was kind of funny because I was like a little bit sick, and I was wondering if I was going to get COVID again, or whatever it was. Like I was going to go through something, and they're going on a road trip, and then you realize that people are sick, and there's this thing going on, and they're trying to head to the beach. They're I think in southwest, like New Mexico, Arizona, something like that. They're trying to make it to the beach where they where they used to be as kids, and there's an abandoned sort of rundown abandoned hotel there and things that they feel like it's be safe there. And they have all these rules. It's not a good movie, but they have all these rules and things and how to avoid COVID. And then, spoiler alert, as the movie goes on, some of them, the four people get COVID, and how or this disease that kills everybody, and how they deal with it. But the interesting thing, the reason I'm saying this, is there's one part that's like kind of interesting in terms of everything that's happened. So this is a 2009 movie, and there's a part where they're out in the desert and they have a fire, and this truck is chasing some guy. It's like a big, sort of redneck truck with a lot of lights on it, chasing a small car, and they come and the guy chases him down and shoots him, right? And he says, "Take that," or whatever. And then they cut away to the next morning, and they're driving really slowly down the road where this truck had come and, killed this person. And there's a guy who is tied up to a telephone pole, and it's an Asian guy. And there's a sign that says, it says a derogatory, racial slur for Chinese people. And it says, "brought it here," meaning the virus. So in this movie, the Chinese are being blamed for bringing the virus to America, which was, of course, interesting given everything that happened with COVID and the predictive programming. Again, not a good movie, not worth watching. Like, I wouldn't have watched it had COVID not happened. Like, I would have watched the opening couple scenes and said, "Oh, this sucks." I mean, it's not well done. But it had things in it throughout the movie that, were like, foreshadowing or predictive programming for what was going to happen with COVID. Anyways, I'm starting to get tired out here. I just want to do a short video. I'll probably put up a journey series later tonight or tomorrow. And, I don't know how I'm going to do all this, but, I'll do short videos. Like, I have enough energy to do that. And I don't really have much motivation. Like, I have the energy to do it. I just want to sit there and do nothing, So, anyways, but there's one thing I want to say. The video I made about the beginning is near got demonetized by YouTube. I don't know anything that has to do with this Palestine-Israeli thing is, can be demonetized without any explanation. They now don't tell you why they demonetize a video. They used to do it, but now they don't. And that's happened fairly recently. So it started off being monetized, but then they demonetized it after I went to bed, which always sucks. But I wanted to say that the more that everything I'm talking about here and everything that I cover on this channel, my other channel, and everything I see with people, again, this woman knows that she's feeding her kids poison. Like, let's establish that, right? She knows that the French fries are bad for the kids. She's just so much better than her husband or ex-husband because she only poisons her kids some of the time, where he poisons them every day. But God knows what they're eating other than that. Probably like just processed foods. And, it's not just, that might be what she knows is bad. But have you done anything to learn what is good? Like I always talk about, read the ingredients, right? How exhausting it is to have to read the ingredients all the time. And then figure out what should be there. Like, what they're serving you is bad for you and poison, but what are you going to replace it with? But things have been going in a negative direction for a long time. And, people say, like I had somebody commenting saying, well, people are always saying the world's going to end and, all these things. And yeah, that's true. When you're going in a negative direction, Well, there's apocalyptic prophecies in most religious texts and most cultures, and there's these things that people have gone through things where there are horrific things that they go through, and most of us haven't had those things happen to us in America, but countries that have been bombarded or invaded, or countries that have a volcano that's around there, they live near a volcano or something major happens, and then people have personal catastrophes like somebody dies in a car accident or somebody dies from cancer, somebody young. I mean, all these things, right? From traumatic things. And we all get a little of that, right? But big, giant catastrophes that affect a whole group of people, if you haven't experienced something like that, then it's completely foreign to you. And you might hear about it through your parents and your grandparents, but still it's just stories. And a whole civilization going down has happened over and over again because of, just the destruction that we know about that has happened on this planet. But it's just when it happens. Until it happens, it's foreign to you. Like you might sense it, you might even live through it in a past life or something, but it's not something you've experienced. But we can all agree that we're going in the wrong directions. I think most people can agree that humanity is going in the wrong direction. There's consequences for going in the wrong direction because you see it in your own life, right? Things that I'm talking about. When you're behaving and doing what you're supposed to do, you're avoiding a lot of consequences that inevitably are going to come. They just are. Like they're unavoidable. Um, you know, once you engage in these behaviors, you can avoid them by not engaging in these behaviors, but inevitably the collapse of our system will happen whether you engage in these behaviors or not, because systems collapse. And usually when they do collapse, it's because the immorality sets in and, bad behaviors and bad decisions. But sometimes it's just cyclical and it's the end of a yuga. It's just, the earth is going through something, whatever. You know, other than the way we feel about it, the way our subjective minds and our needs and our desires and our habits are connected to the system, we all know it's a good thing, right? That's why the beginning is near is so brilliant, because something bad is ending, right? And as much as we're scared of death, as much as we're scared of change, as much as I'm scared of the unknown, um, it's we all kind of know it's a good thing. Anyways, I'm just going to wrap this up here. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely pointing from the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.